Thank you, everybody. Take a seat or stand up, whatever you choose. Welcome. Thanks for coming. Let me just give you an overview of what we're going to do tonight. Progressive Democrats. My name is Gary Barnes. I'm the chair. Demetrio Pruneda, vice chair. And Karen Araujo, lead organizer.
Yeah, I am.
You are. And you're deputized.
Thank you. I accept.
And so normally we meet in Seaside. We're meeting in Salinas. We're going to do more of that, and we'll talk a little bit about that toward the end of the meeting. So maybe we'll go around and say I want to thank the Farmers Union for allowing us to meet in this great location. Many of us may have spent a lot of time in our earlier years in the old location over on Wood Street, which was an old hotel or something. I forget what it was.
Post office.
Oh, really? Post
There's
office?
an old post office, and right now they still have the old eagle they just got on the top. You see it right at the top. And there's a not a UFW eagle, just the emblem of the post office has the eagle. So they painted it red, white, and black. You'll see it while some of the painted over silver.
So let's go around and do a quick, each person sort of announce who you are. I mean, I shouted out a little bit. I don't know about you, I have 2 hearing aids, but I still can't hear everybody all the time. Let's start in the back. Somebody?
I'm Steve Eklund.
And you live in what town?
Salinas.
You're local, right? Hi, welcome.
Right. Doug Dunn, Salinas.
Cool. Who has white Salinas?
Sarait Martinez, Salinas.
Salinas, Salinas.
Demetrio Pruneda, Salinas, and thank you for bringing the meetings to Salinas.
Juan Martinez from Gonzales. I'm a member of SASS and have been involved with people like Gary and Karen forever, and that you guys are still up on it and working with people like the Brunedas to make sure that Salinas has the opportunity to become progressive. So yeah, right on. So we're here.
Jan Schreiner, Marina.
Jet LSC, who kills unincorporated area.
Karen Araujo, right down the street.
And gentleman who just came in.
Hi, your name, sir, and what town you're from?
My name is Tony Castelletto, and I'm currently living in Monterey, but I also live in LA.
Well, welcome.
Okay.
And you'll hear more about Postdoc in a minute. What about, does media wish to identify itself? That would be you too. That would be a no.
Okay.
1 no, 2 no's. Okay.
All right, well, so let's see, what else was I going to mention here? You know, I think someone wrote down socialists. You know, this Progressive Democrats is sort of the left wing of the Democratic Party. There's a statewide Progressive Dems, there's a progressive movement. Years ago, there's a progressive caucus in a state, federal House of Representatives. Representatives who identify as progressives, among other things. So we'll, at some point, not now, but we'll talk about all that and what does it mean. And people have been arguing about democratic socialism. What does that mean? And we'll get back to that. I think we'll talk a little bit more. We'll give a lot of time to Oscar and for questions and answers. And then at the end, we're going to talk about what kind of campaigning we may want to see, we want to make happen here in the Salinas Valley. Thanks everyone for coming. I will turn it over to Karen Araujo, who's going to introduce Oscar, our guest speaker tonight.
Thank you very much, Gary. Okay, so we are going to hear from 2 folks tonight about Safe Ag, Safe Schools. How many of you have heard about Safe Ag, Safe Schools before? Great. Okay, so this will be brand new for a couple of you, and some of you already knew some things. So that will help us deepen the conversation afterwards. The coalition is made up of about 50 organizations at this point, and in its previous incarnation, it had another name that I can't think of right now, but Sarait and Oscar can tell you. And they are driven by local, wonderful staff people. You'll hear from one of them. Her name is Sarait Martinez. She is the local community organizer. And Oscar Ramos serves as the president. And he also is he also is a member of the Salinas Elementary School Teachers Council and has a role with his union as well. So we'll find out what are they doing? What are their successes? What role does politics play in what they do? What role does the community play in what they do? And then in the next steps, as Gary was saying, we'll talk about how does this inspire us, being that elections are coming up sooner than we would like. But also know that after the 10 minutes or 15 minutes that they speak, we're going to have time to ask questions or have a little discussion. So if something piques your interest, just make note of it and hold off, and afterwards we'll ask questions. Okay? How's that sound? So without further ado, Oscar Ramos and Sarait Martinez.
Hey, Karen contacted me a while ago and asked me if I could be a part of this meeting. Absolutely, because we want to get the word out. But apparently, a lot of you already know Safe Ag, Safe Schools, which is great. And if you don't, you'll get an opportunity to possibly, perhaps, maybe if you would like to join us in one of our meetings. Because we do have three chapters, Greenfield, Salinas, and Watsonville. So whatever's closer to you, you can attend one of those and you'll get to meet everyone else. We have, we have teachers, we have, what else have we? Community members or retired, we have former nurses,
Bus drivers,
Elected officials.
yeah, elected officials, yes.
and long-time activists yourself. Yeah. So it's been nearly 5 years since I started in Safe Ag, Safe Schools. I was originally from Hollister, but came to work in Salinas at Sherwood Elementary School, and I've been there 22 years. And what happened is that I was a union member, a site representative, and then I became vice president of Salinas Elementary School Teachers. And someone came and spoke at one of our union meetings about chlorpyrifos. Pesticides in general, but chlorpyrifos. And something that rang about, because everything she was saying about chlorpyrifos, all the side effects, and how it affects children, the ADHD, the autism, the asthma, the learning disabilities, the lower IQ, just everything, it rang a bell, and I thought, oh my God, I connected the dots, because like I said, I've been teaching for 23 years. And after 23 years, about 10 years into my career, I started noticing that more and more kids were being diagnosed with ADHD, and more kids were being, flagged with health concerns, learning disabilities, and I made the connection. And over the years, I see more and more. So at the beginning of each school year, for those of you who don't know, we get a little list of all our students, and if there's a health concern, there's a little flag. And then if you want to know what it is, you go online on the computer program and you click on it, and it tells you what the health concern is. Now it can be anything from must wear glasses to serious illnesses. And when I first started teaching, I'd get 1 or 2 alerts, and then later on I'd get 4 or 5. And this year, I kid you not, I swear, I can print it out. Every single one of my students has a health alert. Wow. And, through Safe Ag, Safe Schools, I've learned so much. I teach elementary, so I don't know all the different pesticides and all their technical names and everything each one does. But what I do know is that we live in a farming community. community with ag fields across the street from schools in neighborhoods. I do know that they spray a lot of pesticides, some of them very harmful. And depending on the area, one of those pesticides is Chloropyfiros. So I started getting involved in Safe Ag, Safe Schools. I met a lot of wonderful people who are very passionate about this kind of work. And I'm a permanent fixture now. I am very busy. I don't attend every meeting, but whenever I'm needed, whenever I can, I'm there. And we've been everywhere. Sarait?
Yeah. No, that was great. And I'm always, I mentioned my name is Sarait Martinez. I'm the organizer with Safe Ag, Safe Schools. I'm passionate about this. I'm also kind of fairly new to the movement. With pesticides, I started working with them like last July. So it's not even been a year, and I learn every time we have meetings, and I learn from my members, and I learn, Oscar is just, again, he's really like, being a face for a movement in Salinas, and in the state, like being featured in different articles, again, because of his role as a teacher, and because he's at the forefront seeing how students have been impacted. And like Oscar, we have many other members across the region, Monterey and Santa Cruz. So I am very passionate about the work, mostly, again, how it affects our immigrant and farm worker communities. And they're not the only ones being impacted by working in the fields, but also, by going to school, by eating the fruit that still has residues from pesticides. So this is an issue that is really close to me as a daughter of a farm worker family. And I'm really passionate about it, and I enjoy working with the two groups. We do have strong groups in Greenfield that started a little bit over a year, so that's the most newest group. Salinas here has been a strong group, and also in Watsonville. And even before that, I know that there's here in the room we have members, Juan, Gary, Karen, and I know they've been in the different movement of pesticides since even before we were called Safe Ag, Safe Schools. So it is a movement that keeps growing. And then again, the fight is not over, but Chloropyfiros has been one of the pesticides that we've been fighting more strongly since 2016, early 2017, because Chloropyfiros was supposed to be banned in 2016, early 2017, when the EPA, after tons of science, they said that it needed to be banned, and finally said it should be eliminated from agriculture use. Got revoked by the Trump administration. So since then, we were fighting not only the only group here in Salinas in the region, but across the state. Because Safe Ag, Safe Schools is part of a larger statewide coalition with about 200 organizations that fight against pesticides. And we do have groups like SASS in the Central Valley. So through that work, and we've been fighting to get Chloropyfiros off agriculture.
That's right. So Safe Ag, Safe Schools is not just one group. It's part of a major group. Man, you mentioned 50 other groups. When we come together, it's fantastic. We've had marches, we've had workshops, we've been in fairs, we've had press conferences, we've gone to Washington, not Washington, but we should. We've gone to Sacramento so many times. We've been there for Action Day, for Cesar Chavez Day, we've been there for public hearings, we've been there on weekdays, we've been there on weekdays, we've been there any day that we feel we can make a difference. Those who can go, then they go. We've met with politicians, we've met with people from the governor's office, and at times it's very frustrating because despite all the evidence, and we're talking huge universities that have had these major studies that point certain things out, and they still refuse to do it. We're talking UC Berkeley, UCLA, Columbia University. It's not, these are huge universities, right? But, so you mentioned that, yeah, it would, chlorpyrifos, our biggest fight has been, you know, with fighting against, we want to ban chlorpyrifos. And we thought we had that covered, but, you know, Trump came in and we know that it's a joke of an administration. It's a joke of a federal EPA when you get Scott Pruitt in there, someone who's sued the EPA so many times before he became the actual commissioner, whatever it is. Yes, secretary. So it really, it's an uphill battle, and it's no coincidence that, you know, Scott Pruitt is there, and that, you know, Dow Chemical donates $1 million to Trump's inaugural fund, and then all of a sudden, yeah, we're not going to ban that. It's not, they're not even covering their tracks very well. But chlorpyrifos is not our only battle. Any pesticide that's harmful, we're against. Now, I understand ag is a business, and they have to make money, and they have to, you know, they have a product they want to sell. We're not fighting that. We're fighting how they choose to grow their product. Does it have to be in a harmful way? Does it have to be in a way that's going to harm children, that's going to harm the community? That's going to harm the people working, their own workforce, the environment, the water, the air. And that's where they don't want to come to the table and realize, like, okay, well, let's find a different way. It's our way or no way. And it's taking a lot of work. So we could mention some of the victories we've had. I look back, so they sent me a PowerPoint, and I look back, and after going through all the little victories we've had, they're little big victories, is what I call them. Because these are the kind of victories that catch fire and spread quickly. So we fought for bigger buffer zones, right? So I'll read what it says. So Safe Ag, Safe Schools got Monterey County schools to improve buffer zones from 500 feet. Before it was just a 500 feet buffer zone to a quarter of a mile. And Santa Cruz County schools to improve their buffer zones from 200 feet to a quarter of a mile as well. We also got them to require a 36-hour period between communications and between school hours. So even though it's a small victory, a quarter of a mile before, it was, I guess, nothing. But now it's a quarter of a mile. We know a quarter of a mile isn't much because drift carries a lot more than a quarter of a mile. We found residue from pesticides miles away from anywhere where the pesticide isn't even applied nearby. Roundup. We fought to ban Roundup all over Safe Ag, Safe Schools, and the Pajaro Valley Federation of Teachers in Watsonville. They organized to ban Roundup in the Pajaro Valley Unified School District. And then they pushed to ban Roundup in Watsonville altogether, and I believe that starts July 1st. Yeah, so it's banned citywide. And then in my district, I worked with our school board to ban Roundup in all the Salinas City elementary schools. In Greenfield as well, we pushed for a resolution to ban Roundup, and on March of 29th of this year, we also helped ban Roundup in all Greenfield city limits. And our most recent victory, just not too long ago, was here in May 14th at the Salinas Union School, high school district. Their school board unanimously voted to adopt a resolution to immediately remove all the Roundup from school grounds. So they're like I said, they're small victories. They're small big victories because as you can see, it started with one, and then it went to another, then another, and now there's so many lawsuits out there against Roundup. Courts have ruled against them, and they owe, I don't know how many millions of dollars, because it's harmful, it's hurting people. But our biggest fight continues to be chlorpyrifos. So this is what we did to fight that. So all over, we thought since the federal government had banned it, like, yay, but then Trump came in and didn't happen. So we said, well, what can we do? Well, then we have to fight at the local level, we have to fight at the state level. We thought fighting at the local level would probably be easier because you talk to the ag commissioner, the ag commissioner says done and it's done. And I am very disappointed in our ag commissioner. And every chance I get, I call him out because he's proud and he proudly tells a story. I was a migrant farmer. I was part of UFW, and he
So he sold out?
and that's what I said. And I said, well, he's proud of that. Well, guess what? I call BS on that because I call him self. I call him a coward because working in the field, I work in the field. I have the same, I grew up working in the field since the time I was 7 years old till the time I went to high school. I was part of UFW. I lived in a labor camp, all that, but I choose to fight for the children and the communities, and he chooses to fight for the big corporations. So he can tell his story all he wants. The fact of the matter is, he sold out. He sold out because there was more money in selling out than protecting our community. And I always tell him, wherever I speak and I call him out, I say, if you see him and you tell him Oscar Ramos said, so. And he's welcome to find me and we can have a nice little chat. So that didn't work. As a matter of fact, it was very difficult to get a meeting with him. The first time we scheduled a meeting, he didn't show up, he didn't go. He sent his deputy ag commissioner, and they came in very defensive already. We tried to, some of you were there. He wanted all cell phones turned off and no recording and none of that.
Still video.
If you have nothing to hide,
I turned mine on.
if you have nothing to hide, why would you want all of that, right? And in that meeting, I remember clearly saying, well, why don't we ask, why don't you have the power to ban it? Why don't you? He clearly said out loud, because I don't want to. He said, I choose not to. I don't want to. He doesn't see it as a victory. He says, well, we've been using less and less every year. Well, I don't care if it's less and less every year. Nobody cares if it's less and less every year. Any amount is too much. So just get rid of it. But that didn't go over too well. And then eventually, he did show up. He did have a meeting. I wasn't able to go to that meeting. You were already with us?
Yeah.
So I don't know how that went. You might pretty much the same way.
Yeah, I think he described it exactly. I mean, it's a lot of the story. Just saying that I've heard the priorities, and I don't know what he's doing. I talked to farm workers about, the trainings that they get, and more of the exposure in the field. So we talked a lot about that. But when I asked about protecting communities, again, the neighbors and the school kids, and including, especially with chlorpyrifos, including notification to the schools, to do a buffer zone, a 1 mile buffer zone, and to require alternatives to growers before applying, again, this brain-harming pesticide. And his answer was no for all of those 3 requests that we had when we met with him. And since then, we requested another meeting, and he just has not responded. He responded to the letter, but forgot about adding a date for a meeting time.
I'm not a gambling man, but I'm willing to bet a lot of money that should one of the big ag companies call to set up a meeting, he would take it. Yet he won't want to take another meeting with us because, well, the truth hurts, and the fact of the matter is this, is that he's ignoring the children, he's ignoring the community. And that's his job, to protect the children in the community, not to protect big corporations, and he is protecting the big corporations. As a matter of fact, there was a UCLA study, right, where the UCLA study, in conjunction with USC, that found that the ag commissioners aren't really doing what they're supposed to do. We just consider all safe alternatives to any pesticides. And not just that, but consider the cumulative effects of other pesticides combined together. And then they found that a lot of the ag commissioners aren't doing any of that. It's like chlorpyrifos is your go-to, do it. It's not supposed to just approve it. So local level obviously is not working, didn't work. Salinas Valley's got some huge, powerful ag companies, and they control alcohol, not just a salad, but a puppet of the big corporations. You know. So what we started doing is, okay, well, then we need to go to the state. And that's when we started organizing to go to the state, public hearings, any study they did, all the marches and action days and meeting with the politicians and everyone. We started doing that, and slowly there were like, well, yeah, the studies show that, yeah, we should probably ban this, and before Jerry Brown, our governor, wasn't really doing much, but thankfully Gavin Newsom came in and he said, you know what, enough is enough. It's, you know, his administration said, it's gone, we're banning chlorpyrifos. Now that sounds like great news, and it is. There is a bad side to that, is that it wasn't an immediate ban. It's, what is this, a 2-year phase out?
Yeah, they call it a cancellation process, so they're gonna start counting all the administrative procedures to ensure that they start canceling out pesticides with that ingredient, and that can take up to 2 years.
But that is a victory in itself.
Yes.
Oh, yes, and I do have to say that it has never been done before. A cancellation process coming from the executive branch and through the California Environmental Protection Agency has never been done before. It has always gone through the regulatory body, which is the Department of Pesticide Regulation, that starts some type of phase out after science or pressure. But I mean, we have been doing that for the past 2 years. And I can say that that cancellation would have never happen if we weren't being organized in the ground locally across the state.
Which is, you know, again, despite all the major studies and the science, I don't know what's going on that people don't believe in science. Well, people do. Politicians, some politicians don't, and they choose not to.
And these scientists, all this money to do these multi-year studies, and we can do it.
Exactly, yes. So
Reading the Bible.
So what does the future hold for Safe Ag, Safe Schools? We continue to fight. We continue to fight, whatever it is, whether it's chlorpyrifos or something else. Listen, I was reading an article that chlorpyrifos was the alternative to DDT. Now, if chlorpyrifos was the alternative to DDT, what's going to be the alternative to chlorpyrifos? So we're going to start this, once chlorpyrifos is done, what else are they going to come up with? And then we're going to start this whole process over. I encourage you guys to help us out with, you know, I call out Henry Gonzalez every chance I get, and I tell you guys, if you see him, you tell him what's wrong with you. So in the teacher's council,
Yes.
call him a coward and a puppet and a sellout. Call his office, you know, I have his number right here, email him, I have his email right here, and you let him know that.
What is the number?
759, I will write it up here. 759. Oh, 7325. And Sarait brought these little things, and it's actually in the back too. But she's right, 759-7325. And I recently did an interview. So I recently did an interview for NPR, and I called them out there too. So I've been featured in all the local news outlets, whether it's print or television, except for KSBW. KSBW does not like me and what I do. But about everyone else does, and every chance I get, I call them up. I want them to feel ashamed and embarrassed and selling out, not just the community, but his own people. Because, and then I read this too, and it got me more upset. So, Monterey County has the highest percentage of students in the state, that's 25%, that attend schools within a quarter of a mile of the heaviest pesticide use. And this is what upset me the most, because he's proud of this story, but listen to this. Latino students are 3.2 times more likely to attend these schools. They're the ones that are being affected the most. How can he be proud of who he is and his story? when he's letting his own people get exposed by toxic chemicals. Call him out every chance you get, and then send him my way.
Yeah, I mean, yes, and I do want to acknowledge, I know there's some other folks here, Steve, Wes, Dred, that have gone to Sacramento. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting some people. I know, like I already mentioned, the Sarait started working, that they have gone with us to Sacramento multiple times. So one day when it was pouring raining, and we got the cops calling us, we got the, we had been in pretty intense actions where, I mean, cops have gotten us out of heating rooms. But again, we do everything to protect the kids. And I do want to mention that, I'm going to bring this one away, that we do have a couple campaigns happening right now too. Like Oscar said, the fight is not over. We will continue to push. And to really advocate for like a healthier agricultural system that protects human health. Because that is when we want an agricultural system that works not only from the earth and the environment, but for protecting our farm worker communities that work there, and also the communities that lived in these towns that, again, the pesticides do not stay in one side, but they drift. So I did brought this, also pages that I didn't bring, but Juan brought it for me. There is this new website that the Ag Commissioner had this page, Farming Safely Near Schools. So the name is a little misleading because it's Farming Safely, but it came from the Ag Commissioner. But it is important because of one reason. With this, if you sign up in this website, now there's 10 schools that get notifications through email and now through text message if you sign up to get them within a quarter mile of fumigants. Fumigants are the most drift-prone pesticides that stay in the environment days and weeks after the application. They inject it in the soil, mostly in the strawberries, and they're gas. So if you sign up for this one, you'll get notifications. But it helps us also find out best practices that they do when we sign up. But also, most importantly, you get to know. So the schools get to know, the neighbors get to know, especially if you live near the school, so you can close your windows. I've heard stories of people living in apartments and like waking up in the morning and they're either the kitchen table has the pesticides, you see the planes going in the morning and they didn't close the windows or they leave stuff out. So like this is important for people to know so that they can at least be protected, close the door, not let the kids out. But there's only in 10 schools. So we're asking for notifications to be the standard people. We have the right to know. So there should be public notices of applications in real time. And we should be able to access them. Community and Greenfield has been asking for notification on a specific chlorpyrifos, and until now it has been denied. But we have 10 schools, so we want to use this model to expand it. But I've heard that this is a pilot program through the Ag Commissioner and the Department of Pesticide Regulations, but they said that until they've proven that it's successful, they won't be able to do that. So to me, I don't know how they're measuring success, but I want everyone to sign up if you can, so that we can get notification and expand this program to the schools across the region. And something that I did want to mention that we, Monterey County, and our SASS group, and even before, we have been the model for the state. It was at the beginning in the 80s, early 80s, I believe, and maybe some of you can correct me, where before there were no signs in the fields, but we got the sign that said warning. That started in Monterey County and implementation here that took it out of the state. And West keeps pointing to Juan because I believe it started here. The same happened when we got rid of the gas methyl too. We put the pressure here and expanded across it, even the nation. So I mean, like we have been the model chlorpyrifos. Santa Cruz County implemented the first buffer zones 72 hours around schools, thanks to our SASS group and teachers and PVFT that fought that. That became the model later for the new mitigation measures that happened early November of last year, before the governor came in and announced the cancellation. So again, our groups can be the model for this. So I really invite you all to join our fight. If you cannot come to all the meetings, follow us on Facebook and find out when our events happen, because that's how we announce it too. And also, not only, if you don't have Facebook, don't worry, I brought a sign-in sheet. If you want to be added to our mailing list, we send regular emails with updates on the meetings. Sign up and I'll make sure that you get into our list so we can email you. And I don't know if you have anything else.
Well, I was going to say, so we're starting to
And one around with it.
yeah, it's a little bit of like the supply and demand. So we're starting to convince some of the big chains to only sell organic fruits and vegetables. And you get the big chains like Costco and Walmart or whatever to start offering more pesticide-free organic fruits and vegetables. Then they're forcing the big ag companies that use these harmful pesticides to change the way they grow their crops. And we've talked a lot about that with some of the politicians, and they say, listen, we all know it's all about money. So they have to incentivize these companies to go organic, because it's all about money. But I did receive, I'm also part of the LULAC, League of Latin American Citizens, and the Hollister chapter, where I get their emails, and Assemblyman Robert Rivas is given credit for getting the 30th State Assembly District $400,000 for a program called the Health and Soils Program, for farmers to try and make that switch to stop using the harmful pesticides. So small things like that are going to make huge differences. And you know, I told you to call out Henry Gonzalez, but at the same time, you can always call the big chains, Costco, Walmart, everyone who sells these fruits and vegetables, and say, hey, listen, I would like more organic selection. I noticed you guys don't have a huge selection of it. The more people call, the bigger the demand, the more, I mean, the more it's the pocketbook. Yes, it's going to hurt the pocketbook. They might start considering and saying, you know what, we're only going to sell organic. So that's all I have to say. So we can, if you have nothing, we can open it up.
Thank you very much for that. The gentleman who came in here and is walking down the road right now, that is Lauro Barajas, and he is our host. We missed an opportunity to thank him, but he is the key officer here at the United Farm Workers. We're very grateful to have this space to meet in. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take some questions and some comments, and then after the Q&A, Gary's going to come out and we're going to talk about the elections coming up, where we can have an impact on many issues. So if you could raise your hand if you want to ask a question, and I'll stack people, and you can direct questions to Sarait or Oscar or any of the wisdom in the room. So we'll go Doug, then Ted, then Jan, then Steve, then Demetrio.
Hey, Oscar. Hey. Doug, my name's Doug. I got a couple of questions. So if I'm exposed to pesticides accidentally, right? Supposedly accidentally, did you inform the ERs of the Nativity and the Salinas Valley Memorial and all these clinics to do blood draws and urine on me to prove that I was exposed to pesticides? That's number one question. Number two, I live in Salinas. I've been here for 20 years, and I see a lot of landscaper, you know, people are doing your lawns and stuff like that. They got these backpacks and they're spraying all kinds of stuff on these lawns. Have you educated all the people that do lawn care and you know, all that stuff? That's number two. Number three is how can I help? I met her before at the
Good question.
At the supervisor meeting. Remember? So I'm retired. I have a lot of time on my hands.
Thank you.
I can answer the first one. And the first one was about if you were exposed and you go to the hospital. I mean, I think, like, based on my experience, we had an incident when a school kid got they were using pesticides in the morning, and he got exposed, so he took to the ER because he had like an asthma attack that was produced because of the smell. And it wasn't really looked at. You have to really be an advocate. I mean, the mom advocated for him, and they were able to do an investigation through the ag commissioner to ensure and to find out what pesticides were used, which a lot, I think, I forgot the number of the pesticides that were applied in the morning that produced some type of respiratory problems. But when you go to the doctor, really make sure you tell them, like, either it was near an area where they were spraying, and then they have to report it, and they have to start an investigation through the ag commissioner.
But have you talked to those ER workers in those medical facilities? Have you engaged them to say, you need to come and listen to us, and this is what we want you to do for
So
us?
we work really closely with the nurses union too. The nurses have gone to our actions and meetings, and I know that they said that they don't have any questions, and because the nurses are the ones that take the intake as you come in, that they don't have any questions with pesticides. At least they're trying to get, like, because of that, they attend our meetings and try to be more educated on it. But it is not a usual protocol that the hospitals have of asking that question. We do have also like we work with the CRLA that does a lot of information too about pregnant women taking the leave early before the 3 months, especially if they're working in the fields. So we do have connections that we're working again to improve not only how the hospital and the health facilities take this input, but again, you really have to be specific about telling them you were exposed.
And what was the first question?
That was the first
What was the second question, Jeff?
The second question was,
Clinics,
targeting, not targeting, but going to all these people that do lawn care and saying, meet here, and educate them, because they're walking around, Oscar, I'm telling you, yesterday, I hired a Japanese American husband and wife.
Doug, we got the question.
And the first thing they pulled out was,
we're going to ask them what they're
they were spraying my lawn with pesticides.
Well, we don't, those are businesses, we haven't really contacted, but if we have like Watsonville and Greenfield who are banning Roundup, for example, it's somebody's job to let these businesses know you can't be using any of these. But back to the first one, so if you think you're exposed to pesticides, you can't call the ag commissioner and say, hey, listen, this is what happened, and they're supposed to conduct an investigation. Now, it might be me, but I don't trust them to come and investigate. It's kind of like cops investigating cops. Yeah, nothing happened here. And I just don't trust them. So that's a good suggestion, perhaps, that we can let
You are
So we're going to hold off on what you can do because they're going to go through all of that at the end. The next one is Ted.
Can I give a quick suggestion on what, on that?
Ted, and then you can tell him directly afterwards. We're going to go to Ted and then Jan, Steve, and Deb.
I'm thinking that on this idea of medical, convince the community foundation to provide money to do baseline tests out of Natividad and Memorial. Then when there is a problem with health, they can do the baseline and know from the baseline and the present test whether it's an improvement. But a foundation grant to do that.
Excellent.
And they can't say, well, we don't have the money to do it. Yes, they do, the foundation gave it. Okay, I have a couple of statements and questions. Number one, I am a victim, truly a victim of ADI. And my health has severely declined as a result of it. So I identify with these people in the field because my body has been affected through the pacemaker now, among other things. I heard in your talk about migrant farmer workers being affected. Unfortunately, with today's environment, people will say, what about the white kids? That's the thinking that you're dealing with. So if you can find me some children of management who are also having problems, and they're not going to say it, because they probably won't even say it for their own kids' benefit. That's what you need to zero in on those Caucasian people who have been affected as well. That's important because then they'll wake up and pay attention in some other areas. They're looking the other way because it's people of color. That's a reality. What politicians do you have on your side? You have Jimmy Panetta speaking on your behalf. Do you have others like Jimmy with that power? Do you have Ana Caballero speaking on your behalf? These are people that should be, and I know that Ana, you're not quite sure. I've known Ana for years. Her husband was very famous for saying, stop telling us what to do. White people told us for years what to do. Let us do it on our own now. So I'm aware of all that. But I think it's important that you get somebody like Ana who still has contact with Sacramento as well as her Washington connections now on your side and to speak. Or at least get others like Jeff Taylor you should talk to be with you to try and work on this. Find out where the growers' children and their management people, their children, find out where they're going to school.
Good idea.
And if you find out they're not going to schools for whatever reason, then ask them why. Why are your kids over there if it's not a problem? Today, unfortunately, they have to be in people's face. That's the only way they're going to respond. The old days of, oh yeah, I want to do that because I'm on your side. There are some people who will say that, but for the most part, the people who can change things need to be in their face so they will embarrass them.
Well, what do you think about that, y'all?
Well, I've read some instances that you make good points. You asked, but you don't think it is a problem. Where are you living? Where are you going to school? And we know of instances where, we'll report something and nothing gets done, but you go over to PG or somewhere and there's even talk about some sort of spraying, anywhere, and they go up in arms and all of a sudden, okay, we're not going to spray. Okay, now back off, we're not going to do it. It won't happen here, and it just doesn't. And that's the sad reality is when you get people that you're speaking of to say something, then all of a sudden it's a problem. But it's not when it's just us.
Thank you very much. Jan, and then after Jan is Steve, and I will add, is it Anthony?
Yeah.
I'll add Anthony here. So Jan, and then Steve.
I was thinking of the drift in kind of a three-dimensional way, into the groundwater. Have there been studies for residual compounds in the groundwater?
Well, as I was doing some research today, actually, I started reading some more. They found some residual, pesticide residual on some of the animals and some of the water. There wasn't too much information about how much and how toxic it is, but it's found. I mean, listen, it's everywhere. You can't get rid of it. Just because they spray it one day and you no longer see it or smell it, doesn't mean it's gone. I guarantee you that you can go to any school and that hasn't, summer's coming and they usually clean everything, but before any of the schools get cleaned, I guarantee you if someone has money to do an actual study where they go and they just rub the windows with whatever it is, that some kind of toolkit, and they test it, they're going to find pesticide residue, multiple pesticides, some more harmful than others. But it won't be done because they're going to say, well, who do we get to do those tests, and who has the money to do those tests, and what does it matter if we do them anyway? It's an activity, we have to grow crops. But yes, there has been reports of animals, water, and just overall inward buildings and everything.
Thank you. Steve.
Yeah, I read maybe a month ago now that they banned chlorpyrifos. Is that still the case?
It is, but yeah, it's
It's 2-year phase out.
It wasn't an immediate ban, an immediate cease and desist. It's I think he said that it's a 2-year, up to a 2-year process. where some restrictions are applied, and then it's a slow process
Phase out.
to phase out, a 2-year phase out, up to a 2-year phase out.
Cancellation.
Yeah.
So I got a feeling looking at this that I forgot. Mira, you had your hand up. Didn't you have your hand up, Mira? I'm just imagining that then. Okay, so I wrote it on the side in case I made a mistake. Okay, so we had Steve, and next is Demetrio, then Margaret, then Anthony. I don't have a hand.
I sort of have
You had some comment about Doug.
a question and a comment, and I applaud the victories. But there's a saying in Spanish, el dicho a lo hecho hay mucho trecho. Let me see if I can translate it into English. There's a lot of gap between what he said and what he's done. So is there the victories that you talked about, especially in the schools, banning Monsanto? Do they have that in writing, that they're going to ban Monsanto immediately, or when? Is it going to be a phase out, or do they have a memorandum of understanding?
Yeah, it's a resolution that they read.
Oh, they did, okay, cool. Okay, and my other, in listening to you, we, 5 or 6 years ago, I was involved in trying to get rid of, with CPR, trying to get in, I think it was vessel bromine back then, here in the valley, because of the strawberries, that they use it a lot. And they banned it, but then they used another chemical which was just as bad or even worse. So these promises, there's a lot of things that these politicians are expert in not letting us know what the hell is going on. So we're going to have to start thinking outside the box. I think we should start thinking about divesting in a lot of the produce that are produced here, and we should also start thinking about community supported agriculture, where people come together and we grow our own crops and then share those crops. And also, I don't know if you usually mention ALBA. I think ALBA is a very good organization that may be able to help the issues that we're talking about. Just food for thought.
Thank you. What do you think?
We do, I remember we did something with them.
Yeah, we usually go to the, we collaborate with Alba and like events that they have. And then
Can you say what ALBA is for
Yeah.
people that don't know?
I forgot the acronym.
Well, what it does, they teach people how to grow agriculturally, how to small plots of land, so people can go out and start small businesses using organic techniques.
They train people to become
Organic farmers.
But yeah, we do a lot, and it's true, like a lot of the times, pesticides, they become a different pesticide when applied. Our fight, again, that's why we're still fighting. And one of the things that happened with this cancellation process is started with Chloropyfiros, is that for when it was announced, there's also like a $5.7 billion that is still need to pass through the legislature to fund alternatives. And it's building a working group that is like looking at alternatives to avoid that. So again, like I think that leaves us an opening at the state level and for organizing to ensure that we keep progression to the new leadership that we have in those agencies to start thinking like in a different way about how to reform like the agriculture and the pesticide industry. So I think those are great questions, and yeah.
Well, it's easier said than done, but I think that the reality that we're living now comes from the top down, and that will never work. I guarantee you. I'm 93 years young, and I've seen a lot of stuff that has been happening because the reality we're living is coming from the top up. If you really want change, we have to co-create, all of us, and all the organizations that are interested in creating change. We have to co-create our reality from the bottom up. Cesar Chavez was a good example of how he did it, and it worked to a certain extent.
That's our fight every day.
Wonderful. Margaret.
I remember now, thank you. And you helped me to remember what I was thinking of earlier, and like a lot of the Demetrio's ideas and what he's talking about. It is true that in the past, the whole idea of going to our politicians and sitting there and getting them on board, politicians are politicians. They're out to get elected. And in order to get elected, they say a lot of different things. Today they're gonna tell you one thing and maybe they mean it, but tomorrow somebody else is gonna come in their ear and then they're gonna bend the other way. And if you think about taking that into account, you can't just count on going to politicians and expecting the Jimmy Panetta's who doesn't even live, and I will say this, everywhere I go, he lives in Carmel, he does not represent the majority of the population of this district, which is minority, farm working, hard working, hotel workers. So he can say as he pleases, but he comes out of Carmel stock and his kids went to Carmel stock school. Did we get that? Okay, so I will depend on the Jimmy Panettas to do those things for me. It's great when they want to help, but I agree with what he's talking about. People need to be organized on the ground. And with it, earlier there was something being said about somebody spraying his lawn. You know, maybe going to the neighborhood associations, because I know one time we talked about, and I know you did it, going to the local daycare providers around the schools, right? Okay, and that was successful. How about going to the neighborhood associations and having discussions about what's being sprayed on the lawns? And so that you're making people aware in their neighborhoods about it, and that's one way to tackle the other end of the corporate. Because we know that it is true, mouth to mouth, talking amongst ourselves, amongst the community is how these things get done. They don't get done by going and talking to my friend Ana Caballero and hoping that she's then gonna only remember me and not the next guy. It's about multiple people talking to Ana Caballero, talking to Jimmy, talking to all these people, and then not taking no for an answer. And even when we talk to them, not then expecting that that's okay, we still show up with a picket sign. Because that's what I'm just saying about that.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we talk to politicians, of course, because we can get their help.
Right.
We take it. We don't rely on them, though. And that's why we go to Sacramento, and that's why we do, press conferences, and we do everything else we do. As far as going out to the association of that's where, at the end when we say, well, what can we do? Is we need more people helping us, because it's a big struggle. It's not concentrated in one certain there. It's everywhere. And the more we talk, like right now, I'm learning from you guys just as much as you're learning from me. Yeah, there are some places where we're not getting to. We're not getting that question, were you exposed to pesticides? Do you believe you're exposed to pesticides in the hospital? We're not going to the associations. We're not doing it because, well, it's, we have 3 chapters, but there's only so many people in each chapter, and we can't be spread.
Yeah, you've got your goals, that's good. Thank you very much. Do you have more, or should we go to Anthony? Anthony, and then Karen, and then Juan.
I was going to ask if you or anyone you work with has tried to map the pesticide drift. The reason why I mention that is in my work as an economist, I do a lot of risk studies in environmental issues. And being able to draw that map is a real opinion changer, because then it makes it clear it doesn't just matter to them, it matters to me.
There is an actual map. So they can probably speak to that. There is an actual map that it shows exactly where the most just all this over.
Yeah, there's a map through the LULAC, it's the health piece of the Cali kind of umbrella, and they have so it's a pesticide mapping tool. If you Google that, you come up with a link, and then you put the address, and it shows you they call it townships. So how they measure the amount of pesticides in that area.
What's that again?
The pesticide mapping tool, township.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, township.
Oh, township.
Yes.
Yeah, and anybody can access that information. Every parent in the district should have that. And what it does, if you look at this wall over here, look at this wall inside, this round wall, you see all the little squares? Imagine that in each square, you have city of Salinas in here. This guy's overlapped over the top. Then you have Gonzales, all that refill like this, right? Now these colors will indicate the toxicity of the concentration of that chemicals, and it breaks down the chemicals. So it tells you pink, red, all the color codes. And that's what basically it does.
And
Okay.
we showed that map at, when we met with, the ag commissioner, and even, they were even disputing that. Like,
Oh my gosh.
we pulled it out, and they were like, well, I don't know where you got that information, because we do our own, and they were disputing even that. So it doesn't matter if you know
Yeah.
what it is, they're gonna have something.
The sky is green.
Yes.
And that, you want to say that's exactly correct, because that mapping tool is like every month, the agriculture commissioners at this, at the local level report those numbers to the state.
So that is a state, that is a California.
It's through the California Environmental Health Tracking Program.
Okay, great. That's wonderful. So I've got questions too. And then one. Is Robert Rivas with you guys? Assembly Member Rivas?
I'll be honest, at the very beginning, I was a little concerned, but yeah, like, I just told you that right now he was $400,000 for Health and Soils program, and so I believe he's testing the lights.
Okay, great. The second thing is, and I have 3 questions. So the second one is, in the Hawaiian Islands, they have like an app, like when they're burning in the sugarcane fields, there's it's for the kids, it hurts their lungs because on the winds, the burning sugarcane blows. And it's just an app. Everybody who signs up for it, you have an app, and it's real time, and parents can choose to keep their kids home. The technology is there. How in the world can they not say it's possible because the technology exists? And that would really kick them in the bank account, because if people started keeping their kids home from school, they would lose that average daily attendance that the schools need to function. So they'd get some political pressure. So what about those apps? Have you heard about those apps?
I haven't, but that would be great. I gotta tell you the story where, so I was doing some research, it talks about some of the signs that there might be some, pesticide drift around your area. They're talking about the types of smells and the air changes color or whatever it is. We've had several instances over the years where we let our kids go out to recess, and all of a sudden you hear all this yelling and screaming and running. They're all running back to the classroom saying they can't breathe. So we go out and you literally cannot breathe. It's this burning sensation in the throat and the nose, where we bring them in immediately, like, get back in here and we'll stay here. And, later on in the day during lunch, we let them go out and it's no longer there, or it's very, very, very faint. So something like that would be great. We did have, I don't know who had, at the airport, there was an air quality map around, and that was measuring some pesticides that weren't even close to that area. That's why I said a quarter of a mile buffer zone is great, but is it really when you're getting readings from pesticides that are being used miles away? And all of a sudden that air monitoring device.
And Salinas is one of 2 that have those air monitoring devices. I think Oxnard or somewhere else is another.
I think there's one in Alone.
And there you go, but there's only 2. And like you say, they're getting these high levels and nothing is being done. The last question is, I was going to sound pretty naive, but I don't know, I've gotten a lot done sometimes by forcing people to ask really kind of obvious sounding questions sometimes. What do people say when, instead of fighting the methyl iodide, methyl bromide and all this, for makeup, they have to test makeup first before they sell it to prove that it's healthy? Why do they not have to prove that pesticides are safe before they start using them?
They test them. I mean,
They test them.
yeah, that's what we.
They're not safe.
There's then that's when they cap how much they use, because that's the safe level they can use.
Acceptable.
Acceptable. But yeah, like the fumigants, like
Yes.
T1 is carcinogen. I mean, they have a lot. I mean, all of the pesticides that we have are toxic.
So they're overusing them and they're having these BS tests.
Here's the thing though, where there are times where they say, okay, well, this is a safe level. And then whatever monitoring they're using, it's way above that. And they're like, well, no. And then they change. It's like moving target. Like, no, we think that this is still okay. Like, well,
It's money in politics.
yeah,
Yeah,
well, no.
And something that I learned that, again, I'm still learning, but Dow, the own companies regulate how much, like, they keep a tally or like a track of how much they're selling, and that's how they kind of cap it. So they're the ones that say, I don't think if the state even has like the amount they're using, is the company regulates its own use.
Oh, dear God.
And that is.
That's horrible. So then Juan, and after Juan, Sally.
Okay, I'm going to try to give some ideas and some of the discussion, because there's no sense in bringing up the same old stories again, right? So just moving forward on some of this. The local schools, we said we got 10 that are already going to put a pesticide notices to all the local schools. The monitoring map, the example we used on the wall, the entire valley is that way. So you got Chuba, you got Greenfield, you got all the schools that can argue the same argument that get to 10 schools are taking advantage of now because they have machines that tell them, hey, they're going to spray or they spray, right? And yes, there's another monitoring machine that was brought into the valley and was placed in Chular. After this, the Salinas one was going to be moved to Gonzales, and Gonzales said, but the Gonzales said, no, we won't. Gonzales school board, 5 women on that school board, they didn't want to know if their kids were being contaminated. They didn't want to know. And we brought it up to them a number of times. And then
Recently, are they up for re-election?
And then right before the re-election, I brought it up 3 more times, raising heck. And guess what? 3 of them did not run. 3 of them did not run, so we got some new people in there. That doesn't change the math on those numbers yet, right? Until we see them to vote. So anyway, my point is, if we can cross-reference those maps with the 10 schools, and then we get other schools identically like those 10 that are not being advised, why aren't they? And they should be, right? Because the other 10 aren't, why aren't we? So there's room for negotiating with the parents and school boards and those people to get them aroused about it. Why? Because it's tons, it's seriously tons, it's serious stuff. Like you're saying all your kids are sick, imagine just half your kids are sick, what's that do to the ADA? Okay, now we have their ear. I used to be a school board member, I know how important that is. School board members, you know that, another school board member, we all know how important the ADA is. All right, so we can target those other ones by looking at where our support groups that we can get nourishment from the bottom up by talking to parents and advisory boards of those schools. The doctors, someone mentioned about doctors reporting stuff and what's going on with the follow-up on that stuff. The state of California, when we passed that pesticide posting regulation, we got the signs with that calavera, the skull and crossbow they use in the fields. Part of that agreement, and Bill Lonnie would know this, part of that agreement was that all the doctors who get groups of farm workers coming in sick are supposed to report that to the state. The state is supposed to monitor group intoxications. I don't know if I said that right. It didn't sound right putting out there. Anyway, so they're supposed to report it to see where the problem's at, right? And give attention to it and then start going to the ag commissioner. Hey, ag commissioner, heads up, look at what we got. And that was 30 years ago, or 20 plus. But we should take a look at that. That's something we could do as a group, is have Bill Monty come give a presentation. And if no one's doing it, because I mentioned it to Bill 3 times. Hey, Bill, what's going on with that? What's going on? Nada. So we need to talk to Bill and say, Bill, if nothing's going on, because you were too busy running for re-election and didn't want to push any buttons, I understand. Just don't sound like. But we need you on this one. We need you.
No problem.
We need you to pass a resolution or something that says you must report. If you want a license to practice medicine in this school, you must report cluster contaminations when they're like that. Whether it's cities or whatever. Okay, so moving on. On the Roundup, when they're spraying neighborhoods, those neighborhoods back 30 years ago, you would know, and you would know. Eileen Donnelly, remember that name? Eileen Donnelly. All right, she was president of the Monterey County Pesticide Coalition. And some of the front pages locally, the city of Salinas actually agreed to post every time you spray at the local parks for Roundup. That's 30 years ago. Okay, when we did the posting site, about the same time. In the 80s, it was, 80s. 80s, but early 80s, late 70s, around that. Okay, that's what it was.
Or
So what I would suggest, if we can go to those cities with elected school board members or chairmen of those school boards who had voted yes to ask the county to advise our district, I should be able to go to the board of supervisors or to the city, along with my other partners of other school districts, as elected officials, say, hey, as electeds, we're asking you electeds, support our kids because we get contaminated, and we want you guys to do the same with the parks, like you're doing with the schools. And they're going to say, well, you know, blah, blah, blah. Doug, we created our own posting signs because they wouldn't do it, right? So we could create our own posting signs for the local school, ag-safe schools, when the bees sprayed around the schools, so that the schools get a heads up. Hey, everybody driving by, we have a sign that says, hey, they're spraying tomorrow. Scare the heck out of every parent. They're scared? What? You're going to spray tomorrow? And watch what happens, right? So that's an organizing and solid deal, tactic to get attention to the issue, that the other schools need the same safety net that we have there. And Natividad Medical Center, you mentioned Natividad, what we could do, we can join up with them to see if they get a grant, because they're doctors and all that, get a grant from them so they get some of their doctors to work on some of the kids that are in the area. Dana Kent, some of you guys might know the name. All right, she is a supporter. Mrs. Monty would be more than happy to support us, and they could also help maybe get some money to create some signs that we put up in the local schools. As far as local officials and what we can do, the example was Gonzales. You complain, guess what? 3 of them didn't run. Because there was maybe 50 to 100 people going to these meetings. I took advantage of it, and I started complaining about the pesticide thing. Because I had an audience of 100 people. Wes was there, he was putting it on TV. So we had a conversation and everybody saw it. So everybody knew what was going on, that they were spraying, and that the school board didn't want to put up that monitor, because they didn't want to know that kids were being contaminated. Those 3 did not run. I think we should support and not support candidates for those school board districts. Make them honest, keep them honest, and make it a challenge for them to speak their mind. What side are they on? So one more thing, I'm sorry, 2 more things. On the posting thing with the money for, it was money for a group to pay for the study of targeted areas. Okay, the local group that we're involved with and the state level, if we could get money to put aside and they target an area that's hot, some of that grant money that Mark, Weber, those guys that have at the state level, if we could move that money to a targeted area so we can monitor the water that the kids are drinking or whatever, and it's expensive, but you decide where you're going to do the hit. Do it there, put your money there, and we get people donate, like the doctors, they'll donate to a special fund to Mark's statewide program that, Pesticide Reform. Special grant, hey, this is for monitoring, we need emergency monitoring, we want you to pay for that water to make sure, what's our kids drinking? Okay.
It's a lot to take in. I'm glad you wrote it down. Maybe
I did, and I'm gonna do that with you. The last and final one. We've been doing this for over 35 years. We should be able to write a book on that now, right?
There you go.
All right, and do the how to do these things. Because as we get older and we phase out, which is normal, hey, look at it. There's other people that they're going to look and say, how do you guys do that? How do you get that signs up there? All this stuff can be put down. Anyway, that's it. Sorry, I apologize for being long.
That's okay. You're enthusiastic and you have great ideas. Do our guests have anything? We have one more question. And do our guests have anything in response to what he said? I was gonna end with coming back to Doug's question about things we can do, but we had a lot of ideas there. Last question or comment from Sally, and then we're gonna move to the wrap up, which is Gary. Sally, what did you want to say?
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank them for their dedication to all of this. I know that you spend a lot of your own time. And I agree with what you said at the very beginning. You said that you have seen an increase of young people who are now have some sort of learning disability or health issue. And I've seen that. I started teaching in 1978, and I'm seeing the same things you're seeing. I remember having one student who was affected by this. But now I go into the classroom and it's not uncommon to find 7 or 8 students that are being affected. Not only from the environment, but also from the foods that they eat. So the way I counter this is, I tell the teachers I'm going to teach nutrition. Then I talk about pesticides. I talk about high fructose corn syrup and stuff like that. And it's amazing how children respond to stuff like this. They take that home and push their parents to buy organic. That's where we need to hit them. We need to hit them at the stores and go organic. So,
Excellent. What do you have to say, friends?
Well, listen, so 23 years, you're right. There is a difference between, you can see the difference between a student who just doesn't want to learn because they don't like school, and there's a difference you see the difference in the students who want to be there, who want to learn, and are trying and giving their best, but they can't. So when they say, well, yeah, a lot of kids, they hate school. Well, no, it's quite the opposite. Kids love school. The ones that you think don't like school are the ones that are struggling because they try, but they can't. And you can see it in their face. You can see little tears running down there because they try so hard. I don't know if you guys ever took a math class and you get a tutor and the tutor can see it clearly and then like, look, it's just right there. Can't you see? This is what you do. And you're looking at it and you're like, I don't see it. And then you get frustrated and you want to learn, of course, but you can't. And that's the face you see with those kids that are being affected. You could point at anyone can walk into a classroom and point like, yeah, that kid just doesn't want to be here. And point to like, that little kid wants to, but is struggling for some reason. So there is a huge difference.
Thank you very much, Sarait and Oscar from Safe School. Make sure to like them on Facebook, attend their meetings, and sign up on this list here. We're going to stop the questions and encourage you to stay after and talk because Gary is going to do a wrap up. And thank you very much, Sarait and Oscar.
Our next meeting is the 27th.
Great.
So come to
Which place, which property?
All right, well, everybody.
Oscar for mayor. 2020.
Okay. Thank you to our speakers. That was a wonderful presentation. It brings back a lot of struggles going back to the late 70s, early 80s. And a book has been written about a lot of that one. Everyone knows. The kind of agitation that went on to limit the amount of pesticides used specifically in the fields here in the Salinas Valley. And, you know, we've been talking several things to bring up here, and just to summarize, the sponsor tonight is the Progressive Democrats. We agitate, educate, organize, and elect. Part of the election process is campaigning. So we want to talk a little bit about that. Campaigns and electing officials, we talked a little bit about elected officials and whether they're trustworthy or not. It's always, and every election cycle, we try to elect good progressive Democrats from school board up to president throughout Monterey County. This does not replace the value and importance of agitation and education. There always has to be people who, once you elect me to a school board, you need to be on my case, right? I got elected to a school board a long time ago. We had a big issue that people were really pissed at me. I had to call back 27 mothers in one night, I remember that. That was one of them. Yeah, I'm sure Margaret did the same thing. Anyway.
No, Gary, I think I was one of those.
You're probably one of the mothers.
I was one of the moms.
And
then later on, I was one of the boys.
Nothing worse than having 27 moms doing that at one time. But that's the job. That's what people, they signed up for it, so don't complain, okay? But what we found out here, for those of us that are working with the Progressive Dems and the Democratic Party in Monterey County, it tends to be heavy on the Monterey Peninsula. They have an office in Seaside. Most of the money that's raised for liberal left groups comes out of 1 or 2 zip codes, which is Carmel Valley. That's where the money is. And it's good money. It's it's not, a lot of it's not tainted money in the sense that it's usually retired people, maybe retired women, actually. It's not a lot of corporate money that the Democratic Party gets locally, hardly any. Most of it's, we just had a garage sale to raise money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
We've
pretty-
done away in the last several years with taking corporate money at the Monterey County Democrats.
Actually,
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, at the last convention, there was, the state convention, they took $100,000 from a tobacco company and they got shit for it, and then people said, well, you gotta stop doing that, because it says that in the platform, we're not gonna take money from
Right.
tobacco companies. So, we have an election coming up. We have two parts.
Primary.
One is in March, the primary, pick a Democratic candidate, Super Tuesday. We also, the first debate among those candidates is we're going to have a debate watching party in Seaside on June 26th and June 27th. It's written there, and I can send it out to people electronically.
And we have these if anyone is willing to hang a paper copy somewhere in your neighborhood.
So the reason to come, I mean, you know, I think we probably all want to see these candidates at one time. So many of us were lucky enough, we signed up when we went to the state convention, and we saw about 14 of them speak. And there were several of us here who were there. So it's a good opportunity to see who, if you haven't already figured out who your candidate is, or if you have a group of leading candidates. There's going to be 10 one night and 10 the next night. And I think there's some value in watching these candidates and evaluating them together. When we get together and look at them and share our feelings about them, why we like Bernie Sanders, why we like Elizabeth Warren, whoever it is. I think it's important, this is old-fashioned politics, getting to know each other. A lot of with the internet and with everyone sort of stays at home and watches the blue tube all by themselves. It's not quite the same as coming out like here and getting a presentation from people face to face and being able to ask questions. So I encourage everybody to come to those debates. There are, of course, other things that are going to be on the ballot next year. I think there's over 60 certain jurisdictions that will be electing board members. It's important to be interviewing candidates and evaluating candidates, endorsing good candidates, good progressive Democrats, whether it's the King City School Board or it's for the Board of Supervisors. Last year, we had a pretty good track record of winning elections with good candidates and with a higher percentage of candidates who were younger, people of color, and women, compared to the Republican list of their endorsed candidates, which it's pretty much, I think 40, excuse me, 40. You know what I'm going to say, right? 40 old white guys, right? I mean, it was pretty sad. They didn't do too well as a group. So it's important for us to be on top of filtering good candidates who want the endorsement of the Democratic Party and making sure that they understand what the issues are. And the issues can be, just like was explained today, pesticide use. If you're on the school board, you're on the city council, you're on the board of soups, this is something that affects your people in your jurisdiction. So it's not just the ag commissioner works for the county, or the county works for the state.
He works for the county, but think how much easier it would be if we had a progressive majority on the county board of supervisors and they heard what was going on and they held the ag commissioner accountable, right? This is a difference we can make in local office.
And if we didn't have elected people supported by us to take oil money, that would be even better.
Well, that could be a condition of an endorsement. And the Democratic endorsement means something to people, obviously, and if you look it up, there's studies that prove that it does actually mean something. It also means something to candidates who are trying to get elected, right? I forgot to mention, we need to raise about $100 tonight. So I'm going to pass this around.
I'll put some in.
If someone pass, maybe we'll pass that around. All right, let's start here. And so one thing I want to try to figure out tonight is one thing that we haven't been able to keep sort of a a regular Democratic headquarters here in the Salinas Valley. So what we want to find out is what the people want. Something like last year, we had a Democratic headquarters out of the Teamsters
Yep.
for about 2 months.
Right.
Okay, that's a minimal setup. We had year-round at the seaside. Okay, so but Salinas Valley is the future of the Democratic Party. People in the Salinas Valley are half the age as people on the peninsula. The average age on the peninsula is like in the 50s. The average age here is in the 20s, late 20s, early 30s.
Not that I would.
So where's the
Credit
future?
card, I want to stick it in there.
In Salinas Valley. We need to shift our presence and our assistance in helping people win fights through education, and through elections here in Salinas. So starting this coming year. So looking for suggestions on how we can do that. Maybe in the past, my history, I lived in Salinas quite often on campaigns, we were able to get a donated office. We find somebody who's got an empty office, they give it to us for 6 months, something like that.
An attorney's offices are good. They don't work at night sometimes. But anyway, ideas, brainstorming.
Well, I was going to suggest if you're at her office, you might want to talk to the woman who runs the book and sound shop down there, because I was talking to her before I came in, and she is super interested in organizing for things like affordable housing. And she may just have some space. And I bet if we kind of made a commitment to get on at least one of the issues she's highly concerned with, she might be very helpful.
Okay, maybe Trish of Downtown Book and Sound.
So this is only about looking for suggestions for spots?
What about if we go to Teamsters again and ask them to donate that space to us instead of renting it to us?
Everybody know where that is? Everybody Teamsters office out on the corner of Sanborn and Market. The Teamsters Labor Council Citizenship Project. We rented a space in there. What was it, $200 a month?
$300 a month.
$300 a month.
So maybe we could just all go together and ask them if they would consider, right now they don't use it, it's sitting there empty.
We're raising the money.
One of the selling points on that is it's going to be an attorney or something that's income flowing. You tell them you can do it as a write-off and we'll write a letter that you donated it so you can use it as a write-off.
Oh, okay.
And the other option, of course, is to raise money to enter it.
Being that Hartnell College is a community college, it was pretty easy for me when I was a trustee there to get a space so that we could have our meetings on the fracking issue. Now, I do have one friend that I think might be able to help us, so Hartnell College, I think, might be a place where we can get something on a regular basis, and I know the process. All we have to do is give 2 or 3 weeks ahead of advance notice. The other one is this building right here.
This cost us $75, plus we had to have insurance certificate,
Okay.
which if we do it again will cost us money. We got one free pass on our insurance, but we have to pay for it.
I'm going to have to leave, and I want permission from Barry to just read a quote that I want people to engrave in their mind, but more importantly in their heart. And because I'm going to have to leave, but it's important, and it has to do with progressive. Okay, democratic socialism explained in 3 words: we the people. Okay, and the other one is, and remember this: laws are created to be followed by the poor. Laws are made by the rich to bring some order to exploitation. The poor are the only law abiders in history. When the poor, and this is from the ground up, that's why I really advocate that we co-create a reality. When the poor make laws, the rich will be no more. And this was said in 1974 by Roque, Delphin, Garcia. So it's not something new. It's something that we have to bring up again and really, really fight as progressives. Thank you for allowing me.
Thank you. So, a place to meet and a place to run campaigns. I mean, there's two needs. One is a place to meet, and then we're using this place tonight. Probably can't use it to run a campaign all the time. Doug?
So, just tell me, the 34 hours, you have to pay for this, okay? What's the insurance cost?
Another 25?
It didn't cost us anything.
Huh?
It didn't cost us anything.
Not this time,
Yeah.
but we
So
can't.
I'll fund this then. I won't put this when you meet, I will pay the fee, period. End of discussion.
There you go.
But aren't you looking for something?
We're looking for a permanent, like
Permanent
campaign
everyday
space and a
place.
place to hold meetings. So Doug is responding to the meetings.
I will pay, every time you meet, I will pay for this place, okay, period.
So is that $75 for a 2-hour spot or something, or?
Yeah.
I will chip and pay, right? But Gary, what, you're the Gary, right, Gary?
Here.
Yeah, Gary. What disturbs me, guys, is when I go to the California Democratic Convention, I was offered a ride, right? Thank you, Emmett. But the story that came back to me, here, there was intimidation, harassment, and coercion to vote for this chairperson at the site of the Democratic California Convention. To me, that's disturbing. And also, there was burning signs. There was, where's Joe Biden signs? They were taking off the seats of the chairs and taken away. Those are my concerns. We, as a progressive Democrat, you can ask Wes, you can ask Karen, Gary, you know me. I spent a lot of money. Not this last Democratic thing at the hotel, the one before. I spent a lot of money at my pocket as a Democrat because I love this Democratic Party. But the problem is coercion, intimidation, harassment of the delegates to vote for this guy who won the chair.
Not locally. We all voted for, I voted for Kimberly, and everyone I know voted for Kimberly.
But that's got to stop. We have to stop doing this stuff because you're killing me. As a funder of this party, you're killing me when I'm hearing the story, right? When the story goes back to me personally. That's despicable to me. How can I give my 100% when I hear this type of nonsense going on down there?
We didn't like it either, Doug. We have input at the county level, and we have a lot of success. We're not taking corporate money at the county level. You have many progressives at the county level. We only have a certain amount of influence we can have, but we agree.
Well, we as a committee had step up and say enough is enough.
Yeah. There's a way to fix that, of course. Thank you, folks. I appreciate it very much.
Take care.
The superdelegated issue needs to be abolished. That's what you're referring to. Where people all of our electeds here they could appoint our delegates and they ask them to vote for their choice. The person Rusty Hicks and not anybody else. So that needs to end. There was some change at the national level, not at the local level, not at the state level. I don't know about the signs, but anyway. Back to Salinas and...
We're looking for a place for the progressive Democrats.
Not the same.
We're a chapter of the Monterey County Democratic Central Committee. And there's other Democratic affiliates,
right?
Young Democrats, that kind of thing. So we all work out of the same office. It'll be a group effort. It'll be a coordinated campaign. And the Central Committee will probably be paying the bills. But we're asking early on here how can we get something on a permanent or semi-permanent basis in the Salinas Valley. There used to be an office here that was for 7 years. It went
I remember I see you there.
Yeah. That's how I first got involved.
Yeah, and it was, we had to raise money. Maybe we'll have to raise some money here. Or we can raise money from Carmel and spend it here, but whatever. I'm telling you, we have a lot of money, and a lot of it goes into candidates sometimes and less into the infrastructure.
By the meantime, Gary,
Ideals.
I will pay for this. I will pay for this.
Thank you. I think we certainly need places to meet, I think, until we can find an office that's a campaign.
We have it here, I will pay.
Thank you.
Ahmed?
So I think obviously logical idea would be partner with the existing Salinas Democratic chapter for the Salinas Valley. Now, was it a yell?
That was a laugh.
So last 3 years, I have gone to as many meetings of the chapter that I can find out about, paid my dues, but the purpose of the Salinas Valley Democratic Club chapter eludes me. And it's certainly not for increasing democratic values and progressive values in educating and helping campaign. So me and Karen have been talking at the Central Committee for a few months with Oscar and Doug and Wes and others. And I came prepared with a list. I wasn't going to say this in public. We are beginning to form a new chapter of Democratic Club affiliated with the Central Committee right here in Salinas. We're local, we're progressive, and if you give us a couple of months, all we need is 20 Democrats' signatures. We'll get a group together and we will start doing fundraising, and hopefully we'll have an office place or a meeting place or something in place where we can share with the progressive, share with the Central Committee on an ongoing basis. It is about time Salinas became the hub of energy that it used to be.
The county seat is the biggest city, it's got more Democrats than any other city.
We got more Democrats than the rest of the county combined.
So,
So not
So we're
Salinas Valley
trying.
Club, not Salinas Valley Club, you're talking about a new Salinas Club.
Yeah, the Salinas only, local politics, holding politicians accountable for, because there's a lot happening in Salinas.
oh yeah.
And it's about time we put a voice
Definitely.
together. So
Yeah,
we're trying.
We need a
If anyone's
slate.
interested in helping form the club, please join us.
Brandon Council.
And we'll get you going.
You guys, I missed your comment. Is it okay if I add in?
Pardon me?
Is it okay if I add in right now? Is it okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Gary's running the show right now.
No, right, so I'm asking, because anyone can cut anybody off. So I was outside, so I missed part of that
You have something to
conversation.
say, is that what you're getting at, or?
Well, I'm trying to say it right now.
Okay, we'll say it. I wasn't sure.
Never mind.
Go ahead.
I lost what I was, my train of
Oh,
thought.
no.
Trustee, speak up.
No.
Okay,
It's the
well,
same old. It's always the same.
we'll keep organizing, we'll figure out a way to make it happen. Thank you, Doug, for your offer. We may take you up on that until we can get someplace.
It's guaranteed 6 months, I put up.
7 days a week.
Oh,
kind of
man.
place.
75 bucks a pop, right? 75?
$75 to rent this room.
I'll take care of it.
3 hours.
Actually, it's interesting because the Progressive Democrats routinely meets in Seaside, and we decided to come to Salinas, we have more people show up here than we
Wow.
usually do in Seaside.
See?
So you
Well,
got-
might have been the
There's a
speakers.
need.
It's the food, right?
I think it's also having a speaker, that was an idea, this is the first time we've used that idea, an idea that has been uttered before, but I think that might
Yeah,
do it too.
not being so formal, right, and how you run meetings.
And there are people in, on the peninsula that are interested, it's that, the golf, right, coming over here. So they're like, so Jan came, thank you, from the peninsula, and Anthony. But I know one person's volunteering and two who said not gonna fight the traffic.
Yeah. Well, any last thoughts?
For the fundraising also, I included a lot of swag from
This is swag from
the
the state party.
yeah. So
That
it's
came
got.
from the convention, thank you Wes for bringing it.
You're welcome. So we can raffle those or, something for fundraising.
So if people would like to make a donation and take something, that would be appreciated. Help us meet our goal tonight of $100.
If you did contribute, please throw a 5, 10, or 20 in the jar.
Or an IOU, and we'll call you in a month or whatever you say.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
If anybody, we're going to have a puppet show at the first 2 debate watching parties. Would anybody like to be a puppeteer?
Oh, man. I'll do
I
it.
did that in high school way
Right.
back when.
If you don't mind a little satire.
Long time ago.
Gary,
No one will see you. Thank you,
All
Doug.
right, Doug.
You're
All right.
completely private, so you're behind there with the puppets like this, right? It's political theater is what it is. So, anyway,
some
give us some
satire.
thought. All right, well, help yourself, swag, food. Thanks for coming. Good to see you.